Hi, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live. Today, I will talk about SDG marketing, the do's and the don'ts. And I'm really happy to be here with you this early morning, actually. I hope you have tuned in and do participate in this conversation that we are going to have about SDG marketing. SDG is about Sustainable Development Goals and how to market yourself with them and what are the do's and the don'ts. And it's really important to understand that to avoid the pitfalls. So actually, I will share my screen and I'm going to show you some slides also about this topic that you can bring with you in your work and work with it. So this is the topic about SDG marketing, do's and don'ts. And just tell me who's here and who are you and where are you from? And so please give me some thumbs up or some kind of notice if you're here, so I know that that you are attending. Let's see if we have any attendance participating. Okay, I see that you are here, so we are live. So what we are going to cover today is talk about SDG washing, for example. What is that? And how do you avoid the SDG washings? And what are the consequences of doing SDG washings? So I will also give you the 5 steps you need to do to avoid the pitfalls. So this is the topic that we are going to cover. And I would like you to just write your questions or reflections that you have during this conversation so I can address them and have the discussion with you. So let's see if you could please write who's here. I see a couple of thumbs up now. So just write in the comments field where you're from, which country. It's always very interesting to see who's participating. And if you're actually working with the Sustainable Development Goals, that would also be perfect to know. Okay, so actually, I have this free gift to you in the end of this live, and which I will give to you. So stay until the end of the live. So my story in short, I will tell you just in a second how I have been working with the Sustainable Development Goals and how I have used it in my work regarding SDG marketing. So hi, Marina. I see that you are here. And yeah, this is a very important topic. So great to see you joining. So yeah, it all started like 12 years ago when I was traveling together with my ex-husband and our 2 children. Actually, one night I just woke up having this dream that I was asking myself, what is my purpose in life and what should I work with? And I answered myself in this very clear voice that I should work for the United Nations. And that was really strange because at that point of time, I had never ever talked about the United Nations. I am a chemical engineer and I have been working with companies in different executive positions and board work. And United Nations was not in my, periphery. So it was like a really strange dream, but it was so powerful. So I just couldn't let go of it. And I started to educate myself about the United Nations, and I went to UN schools, and I also realized that, oh my goodness, United Nations is a huge, of course, organization, but they are also procuring goods and services, and companies can do business with the United Nations. And Sweden is actually a huge financial contributor to the system. but we were not very good at doing business with the United Nations. And for me, business is also contributing with your knowledge and your skills. So I started to look into that and entered into the procurement area. And I worked as a company at that point of time, eWork Group, and I realized that I had this problem to qualify for procurement, because this was in 2016 and 17, and the Sustainable Development Goals, they were launched at that point of time, and in SDG 12. We have actually addressing sustainable procurement. So I realized that I had to, communicate our services through the Sustainable Development Goals. And for that, I needed to integrate sustainability into the business strategy and communicate it through the Sustainable Development Goals. And that was about marketing as well. So I did that, and we had success. We managed to get a frame agreement and work with the United Nations. And that is actually what I'm teaching about. So I also work in the CIS Technical Committee in Sweden to update the ISO 26000 and the self-declaration, which will be launched here in February 2021. So I will talk a little bit more about that. My vision is that I truly believe that the future is equal. And I believe in the power of daring to lead. And that's my mission. I'm on the mission to spread the message of dare to lead on a global scale. So hello, Harshal. Welcome to join this live. And we will talk about, again, SDG marketing, do's and don'ts. So there are a couple of arguments to integrate the SDGs into business strategy. And I will just highlight some of them. But if you have other arguments adding to this, then just write it in the comments field, because it is important to understand why companies should work with the Sustainable Development Goals. So first of all, as I explained here, it is a global common language. If you as a company express your products and services and how you create this shared value to the environment and society, you can do that by expressing them through the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's really good, because then it's easier to match business if you talk the same language. And it's also gives you an opportunity to match and secure your financing from banks and public funds and investors. So it is a global common language which you should use. And it's also an investor requirement nowadays, of course, regarding the risk management. And this is something we will talk more about, because the investors are really looking into the SDG marketing, that you are not doing the SDG washing, which I will just touch up on later on. Hi, Stefan. Good to have you here as well. And the Agenda 2030 gives you also all the legislations, the conventions, and international expectation are all arising from the Agenda 2030. And it, of course, creates value. And here the marketing part takes what we take into consideration, because we have this increasingly conscious customer who really wants to work with companies that are conscious and that are contributing in a positive way to the environment and society. And it gives you an increased business opportunity, innovation, and positive impact. And also you will qualify for procurement, both the public and private procurement. But we will focus on marketing now, how to avoid those pitfalls. So if you take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, at first glance, the SDGs may seem to be very tempting, right? And it seems to be a very tempting platform from which you can promote the company as a great corporate citizen. And actually, many communication directors may also be under the pressure from their CEO or board to publicly demonstrate what the company is doing to help to achieve the SDGs. So it is tempting to embrace all these SDGs, right? And communicate. And you should do that. However, what you need to think about is actually how to avoid those pitfalls. But first, just some data. 40% of the world's largest companies refer actually to the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's really good. And you can read this report, by the way. It's by KPMG, who's written this report. However, the problem is that there has not yet, it's coming, but not yet, been an established process, a benchmark or standard for how to report on the SDGs. So this is why getting it right has been so difficult for many companies, because it has been difficult to know how to work with the Sustainable Development Goals and actually how to report on the work. Yeah, so hi, Christina. You are here to learn how to connect environmental goals, ISO 14000, to the SDGs. Okay, good. Well, then I will touch upon that. So yeah, again, write your comments. Write your questions and your reflections, and we will have this discussion. So if we just take the step back, you see here, Christina, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and you have some of these that are environmental related, of course, but they are truly interlinked to one another. So, so working with the environmental ISO 14001, is you can do that, but that is not enough for the Agenda 2030, because the Agenda 2030 addresses both social, environmental, and economic sustainability, and they are interconnected. So a dear child has many names, because we have heard the SDG washing, the Sustainable Development Goals washing, and also greenwashing, and that's actually referring to environmental aspects, and blue washing, and that refers actually to the United Nations. If you are a partner to the United Nations, that is actually a verb I just learned the other day about blue washing. And then we call it rainbow washing, and that's also the SDG washing. So Marina, you have a question, how to prove and address greenwashing when it happens. Yeah, right. So that's what we're going to discuss. But these washing terms refers to companies that use the SDGs as a window dressing to present a very positive picture of their environmental and social impacts. So the company is actually just communicating and expressing their positive impacts that they're doing, or maybe how they are contributing by their products, and not taking the negative aspects into consideration. So if I just want to give you two examples of SDG washing, what it's including. So it is like communicating a one-sided story of your company's positive contribution without acknowledging that it also contributes to the very problems the SDGs seeks to solve. Because a company can never be 100% sustainable. There are always issues to handle and risks. So you really need to, address them as well. Another example is actually when a company repackage their pre-existing CSR program and make it as an SDG solution. That's also SDG washing, and well, the company tries to give like a very positive picture about their company, and that's good, but you need to also address the negative impacts that your company has. So the consequences, if this happens, Marina, is also that your company may be accused and of SDG washing, and then you risk to damage your organization's credibility and the reputation and the relationships. So, so if you have, for example, an NGO, a non-governmental organization working with you, or you're in a campaign group, or it may be also a journalist or a customer that actually accuses your company for doing some SDG washing, that is, that is hurting your brand and reputation and also the relationship. So be aware of this because the consequences are huge. But on the other hand, if your company get accused, you really need to be honest about your impacts. You need to be honest about your negative impacts also, and serious about changing the business to contribute to the SDGs for real in a really meaningful way. So if you do that, there is much that can be gained. So being like transparent about it and authentic about it, it's actually good for your company. So how to prove and address greenwashing when it happens. Before you do that, I think you need to ask yourself some tough questions to know if you are in the zone of doing some kind of SDG washing. So here are some examples that you can ask yourself in an organization. Like, do we have a complete understanding of all the positive and also the negative impacts your business has on people and environment? Do you really understand what the footprints are in your company? And are you prepared to be open and transparent about them? That's a good question to ask. And also another question is that, is your company really doing anything differently to help to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals? And have you developed some new programs to reduce your negative impacts? Or have you launched some new products and services, or maybe change your business model to increase your positive impacts? That's also a good question to ask. And and this one, I love this question because this is really being authentic about it, because asking yourself, does your company walk the SDG talk? That's important to, to ensure that the whole organization is walking the talk. And maybe you are making some investment decisions based on the environmental and social factors as well as financial returns. So, so walk the talk is truly important. All right, let's see. If your answer to these questions are like, no, we are not aware of this, or maybe not, or even not sure, then you should proceed with caution when it comes to communicating. You really need to be aware of your organization and how you contribute to the SDGs in a both positive and a negative impact. Otherwise, your company may be exposed to accusations of SDG washing. So here is actually the change that is coming, and that will make it easier for companies not to avoid these pitfalls, to do it correctly. So ISO 26000, that's an international standard that has been here for 10 years, and it's actually addressing sustainability. And ISO 26000, of course, it was launched way before the SDGs, right? But now what we have done in Sweden, and I actually say we because I have been contributing to that, as I mentioned earlier on, we have added the Sustainable Development Goals into the ISO 26000 in the Swedish ISO Standard Technical Committee. And we are going to launch it now in February. So so companies can now do a self-declaration of their sustainability work by answering a couple of questions and use it as a sustainability report. So you can actually be very transparent and correct about how to report on your work. And those questions are like, they are formed in a way that makes you aware of how you have to work with your organization to avoid to be accused for SDG washing. And the standard will also be, it will be possible to verify it by a third-party auditor, to verify your answers, that they are that you are doing what you're saying that you will do. And that's about walk the talk, right? And this will make you very interesting in the procurement process, because then you can qualify for tenders and in the procurement process, and you can become even more competitive than your peers that don't use the self-declaration as a standard to report on the sustainability. So your company, if you want to become competitive, you should embrace this and really start to work with the self-declaration and the ISO 26000, which will be launched here in next month. So Stefan, you are asking me, will you share the slides afterwards? Yeah, that's I could do that. Well, if you connect with me, Stefan, you're already connected, so you can have my slides. However, if you are not connected with me, you should do that and give me an email, and I can share the slides with you. Okay, so just write your questions now. Before we head into the 5 things to think about to avoid pitfalls, have you had any experience with SDG washing? And if so, how have you experienced SDG washing? Please share your experiences with us in the comments field. That would be really interesting to read about. So meanwhile, the 5 things you need to think about to avoid those pitfalls, and that's actually addressing your question, Marina, how to prove and address the greenwashing when it happens. In some case here, the step number 1 is to understand your business, to map your value chain, and to see how your company is considered in the environmental and social aspects. So you need to map your value chain to tailor your sustainability approach, and also the SDG approach. And then when you have done that, and you have looked into the sustainability part, you really need to define your priorities by addressing those positive impacts and negative impacts that your company has. For example, the negative impacts is carbon emission. That's a really negative impact. But how do you do to reduce those negative impacts? And you really need to define those priorities. What are the priorities for your company to work regarding sustainability? And the best way to do it is actually to take your stakeholders into consideration, into the dialogue, and ensure that you are actually working with the sustainability aspects that matters most to your business. And then you really need to set up some goals, an action plan, and evaluate them to see whether you are improving your business or not. So, for example, again, the negative impact, carbon emission, if you want to improve it, maybe you say that we are going to decrease our carbon footprint emission with 40% by investing in renewable energy, for example. And that is a goal setting. Then you really need to measure your goal and evaluate it, and then communicate it. Hello, Theresia. It's wonderful to have you here. That was a long, long time ago. I would also like the slides. Thank you. Oh, you have a client you need to convince in their strategy decisions. Great. Yeah, I can send it to you in the LinkedIn chat then. Okay, so a next step 4 is that, as I said, do the verification. Do a self-declaration. You can do that by your own on your company's sustainability work. And this is according to the ISO 26000 that I mentioned. And then get verified by a third party, because that will give you a quality check that you're actually doing what you're saying that you do. That's really important, because then you can qualify for tenders and procurement, and even for investors and for banks also, because you're trustworthy and you are being transparent and authentic about your work. And that's actually step number 5, to to follow up and report and communicate on your work, and being, as I said, transparent. And you can use the self-declaration because it is a very transparent way of communicating how you're working with sustainability. And you can publish the self-declaration actually on your website. So you can use it as a sustainability report. If you are a small company, or maybe even a startup, you can use this self-declaration. And I mean, the ISO standard doesn't cost more than, I don't know, 1,500, something like that. And that's an easy way of actually ensuring that your business is not in the zone of being an SDG washing company. Okay, Marina, you have a question here. You have studied CBS, greenwashing, and CSR and diversity, as well as business responsibilities for human rights, and have done the exams on cases of Danish hotel industry, CSR, and rights of Sami people in Norway, where both state and business to business were involved in the infringement of human rights through their wind park. Green mission built on human rights abuse. That was a good case. Thank you for sharing that. That would be really interesting to talk more about what your findings were, and how you worked with this case. So thanks really much for sharing that. Okay, so let's see, the free gift. Yeah, right. So actually, if you want to make sure that your company is doing the right things, then I have created this really easy free online course. It is actually it is 5 emails, but those 5 emails gives you a lot of information of how you can future-proof your company and what you really need to do. So if you want to just sign up on the link, I think I can share the link with you here in the comments field, and start there, because that's a good way to start to be aware of what you need to do and start doing it. Start working with it. And also another thing is that actually, if you are a company, if you're working in a company and you need a kickstart to kickstart your company working with sustainability, and also working towards being to do the self-declaration in the ISO 26000, you can actually get free consultation, because our course participants in the certification course Business for SDGs, they actually take on a pilot company to apply their newly acquired knowledge onto a company, and that could be your company. So, and it is for free, and what you will get help in is actually to map your value chain, also to identify your stakeholders and your most important stakeholders, and then you do this materiality assessment to determine which of the sustainability aspects that matters most to your company. both from the positive side, the positive impacts that you're doing, but also how you can reduce your negative impacts. So this is a really good way for you to get some quick help, and in the same time also help the course participants to to do their certification course and become these change leaders that they want to be. Because there are a lot of people now on a mission to transform companies to more sustainable companies. And here's my contacts if you want to reach me, or you just link with me on LinkedIn. So let's see if I just get back to the screen. So I stopped sharing my PowerPoint now. So do we have some questions? Then you can raise your questions right now, and I can send the slides to you who has asked for it. So just put your note here, and if you want to have the slides, you can have it, but I need to know who wants to have it. I cannot share it just like that in the comments field. That's not possible, unfortunately. Marina, yeah, we can do it for sure. Yeah, that would be a great topic also to share your experiences. And actually, I have also some really great cases to show you. We have had like 130-ish something pilot companies now being part of the certification program. So there are a lot of cases that we can show that has done great work with the Sustainable Development Goals and the work with future-proofing their companies. Okay, Harshal, you asked, how can we convince more businesses to integrate SDGs in their activities? Well, as a businesswoman, I have to answer in a business-related way. Well, you really need to understand, first of all, you need to understand the benefits the SDGs are bringing into your company. So there are huge business opportunities for companies, for businesses. And there's actually a really great report that I always refer to, Better Business, Better World. You can just browse it, Better Business, Better World. And that report says that there are actually $12 trillion of business opportunity each year within 4 segments. And those 4 segments are sustainable cities, clean energy, food and agriculture, and health. And those 4 segments are then divided into market areas and also into countries, in which countries these opportunities arises, and so on. So business opportunities is one thing. And the other thing is that if your company have some investors or owners that want to, or bank maybe, they need a bank loan, it is also a good reason to understand that your company needs to show how the company is working with the risk factors regarding the SDGs and Agenda 2030. Because the investors and banks, they are really now looking into if you are aware of your risks, not just your financial risks, but the environmental and social risks. So that's also a good argument. But the heaviest argument is to put a business case, put up a business case and really show the return on the investment that you need to do in your company. So that was a good question. Okay, there are more that want to have the slides. Okay, Marina, you are on fire now. Sounds like a plan. Let's plan it. Yeah, right. We will do that. Okay, if you have more questions now, just raise them here. And I will actually take a look into the comments later on as well and comment on them. So, so thank you for today. Okay, Stefan, you have a question here. Let's see if I can just put it up. Regarding the free online course, is it possible the same as I took in the middle of last year, or is it a new version? Even if not right for me any longer, since you're doing the business for SDGs, I'd like to recommend it to others. Oh, thank you so much, Stefan. Yeah, so this is, I think you have done this, Stefan. And this is a very, very short summary of those steps you need to take to future-proof your company. And future-proof it also in a way that you are not in the zone of SDG washing. So, and Stefan, yeah, you're taking on the Business for SDGs certification course, and that's great because that's even more deeper how you can how you work with the sustainable development goals and how you integrate it into business strategy, and actually how you can then transform companies to become more sustainable companies. You are the change leader of doing that. Okay, we have another question here. A LinkedIn user. I don't see your name. You please write your name so I know who you are. But you say that we often see large companies have their corporate sustainability responsibility efforts reports alignment to SDG, but fail to show real-world impact as a result. Yeah, that's a tip. That could be SDG washing. I don't know how it looks like, what you have seen, but they need to show the real case, the real world impact as a result. So, so that's why it's important to set up goals and address what are the goals, what are the activities that you're doing, and measure them and report on them in your corporate report, financial report as well. So not just like talk about them, that you're working with the sustainable development goals, but how, what are the activities, how are you measuring them, how do you ensure that it's integrated into your business strategy. So so yeah, being more precise on your communication is truly important. Another question here, for example, it is much easier to talk about money spent, but how many lives have been touched, right? So the money spent is actually the investment. So maybe your company is saying, we have invested in, I don't know how many millions in that project. But if they forgot to measure the impact, the shared value that they are creating, because that's what it's all about. What is the shared value that the company is creating by doing this in investments, and measure them and communicate it? Of course, it is maybe not always easy to collect data and measure it correctly, but some way you should find some way to measure it, because then you can also be very clear about your return on this investment. Sarita, hi, that's you, the LinkedIn user. Hello, Sarita. I don't know why it just says LinkedIn user, but okay, I know then who you are. Okay, Marina, me too. Business for SDGs is an amazing course for all SDG-friendly businesses. Warmly recommend. Thank you very much, Marina. You are also in the quest of changing the world, and you're working with the expectation field. So that's a really interesting field that you're into, and regarding the human rights aspects. All right, thank you all. We have been on the broadcast for 45 minutes soon. So thank you for participating this hour, and I wish you the best of luck. And well, again, write in the comments field if you want to have the slides, and I will send it during this week. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for participating. Have a nice day.